Jill Stein, thanks for joining me on Upfront. What are you offering the American public that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton aren't offering them? What sets you apart from them as a presidential candidate?
I'm the only candidate in this race who is not taking money from lobbyists, from big corporate interests, and I do not have a super PAC. So I am the one candidate that actually has the liberty to stand up for what the American people desperately need and are demanding. And that includes an emergency jobs program to put America back to work, and a jobs program, in fact, that will also fix the emergency of climate change. I'm the only candidate talking about the crisis with our young people, a generation that's locked in debt, essentially without a future, and also calling for an end to police violence, a welcoming path to citizenship, and a foreign policy based on international law and human rights, not more of this catastrophic, failed regime change policies, these endless wars for oil and against terror, which are in fact only creating more terror. So I am the one candidate that can actually tell it like it is and provide the real solutions that the American people need.
And a lot of people at home would have been nodding along to a lot of what you just said. But isn't the fundamental problem for you, of course, that you have zero chance of implementing any of that, of winning the presidency? I think you're currently polling at around 3 or 4%. So why are you running? What's the point?
You know, you could talk to a young person and say, what is the point? You know, you have no future, you have no job, you are mired in debt. Why are you even bothering? You know, there are a whole lot of people out here that are sick and tired of a rigged economy and a rigged political system. And you know what? The amazing thing is if you actually put us all together, we have more than the votes that it takes to win this. Just the number of people trapped in student debt alone is more than a plurality of the vote in a three-way race. So the critical question is, can the American people get a right to actually know who they can vote for? Americans are supposed to have a right to vote. We also have a right to know who we can vote for.
Of course.
Very few people know about our campaign.
I don't think anyone would dispute.
We have been the most silenced and blacked out.
I don't think anyone would dispute your right to run or your ability to give people a voice or a right for people to vote for you. But the reality is you're not going to be president come November. The next president is going to be either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. So what I want to ask you is, who would you rather see in the White House out of those two people? Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton?
Well, you know, what the American people would rather see is neither of them, because they are rejecting those two candidates who are being shoved down their throats by the corporate media.
Completely agree with you.
And these are the
two
most
candidates who are going to be president. You're not seriously saying to us that you are going to be the next president of the United States. It is going to be Hillary or Donald Trump. And I'm just wondering, again, who out of those two is the lesser of the two evils? Even if you don't like either of them, who's the lesser of the two evils?
It's not a matter of not liking them. It's a matter of that in this election, we're not just deciding what kind of a future we will have, but whether we will have a future at all or not.
I want you to listen to Noam Chomsky. Well, hold on. I want you to listen to Noam Chomsky, who I interviewed earlier this year, who's a supporter of yours. This is what he said when I asked him whether he'd vote in a swing state for Hillary Clinton as the lesser of two evils.
I didn't like Obama, but I said exactly the same thing. There's a constant...
Hillary has your vote if you were in a swing state.
Well, let's put it that way.
Yes.
My vote would be against the Republican candidate.
Do you agree, Jill Stein, with Noam Chomsky, that if you're in a swing state, a state like Pennsylvania where you are now, that could determine the next election result, you should vote for Hillary as a progressive in order to stop the lesser of two evils, the very right-wing, some would say far right-wing candidate, Donald Trump? Surely that's a no-brainer.
It will be horrific if Donald Trump gets elected, but I am not at all reassured by the policies of Hillary Clinton, who led us into the catastrophe of Libya, who approved of the war in Iraq. And you put her in charge, she will start an air war with Russia over Syria. She's already told us that she wants to create a no-fly zone. Democracy is not who do we hate the most and who are we most afraid of. Democracy needs an affirmative agenda. It needs a moral compass.
It also needs a realistic agenda, Jill Stein.
For how we go forward.
And as much as many people would agree with
it is not realistic.
It is not realistic to say to a voter in a swing state.
Are not realistic. One will support coal.
Okay, but one
the
of
other
them,
one will support
but one of them is going to be the next
president.
Most Americans are going to choose between those two people. And if they were to ask you, Jill Stein, I want you to be president, but I'm in a swing state. I'm worried about Donald Trump, like Noam Chomsky is. Should I vote for Hillary Clinton to stop Trump? What is your advice to that voter?
He should vote for our future with an independent political party that will actually serve
so he
us
should not
only
vote
in the
Hillary
short
to
run,
stop
but
Trump.
in the long run.
So he should not vote Hillary to stop Trump?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Don't fall for that trap.
So
Don't
even if that lets Trump in, you're fine with that?
That is a fast trip over the cliff.
And even if that results in a Donald Trump presidency, you are fine with that?
I will feel terrible if Donald Trump gets elected, and I will feel terrible if Hillary Clinton gets elected. I am not fooled by the illusion that the greater or the lesser evil is going to get us out of this mess.
Would you feel terrible if Donald Trump gets elected because people voted for you rather than Hillary, and that's the reason he gets elected?
I will feel terrible if we do not fight with every ounce of our bodies and every ounce of our spirit to establish the democracy, which is essential if we are going to get out of here alive. If we are ever going to prevail, we have to build. So I would say vote for your future. Vote to build our power, because the greater and the lesser evil, this is the politics of fear. Reject the politics of fear. Fight for the greater good.
When Bernie Sanders, who's also railed against the predatory system and the outsourcing of jobs, and you invited him in July to lead your party's presidential ticket, when he says now that actually now is not the time for a protest vote, now is the time to get behind people who want to stop Donald Trump, i.e. Hillary Clinton, and he says, you know, if you guys want to go and run for Congress or run for governorship, fine, now is the time to stop Donald Trump from being president. This guy who is promising to ban Muslims from America, deport 11 million quote-unquote illegal immigrants, kill the families of terror suspects, bring back waterboarding or worse, incites violence against all sorts of protesters. When he says you're just a protest vote, it's time to stop Donald Trump. Is he wrong as well?
As he said himself, he is a man, he is not the movement. This is a time for a movement, and that movement is not drinking the Kool-Aid. Some are, but many are not going into Hillary's camp. Do you know that 40% of Americans are not going to vote in this election because they do not buy what the Democrats and Republicans are offering to us? Hillary Clinton is not different enough from Donald Trump that she or the Democratic Party are going to save your job, save your life, or save the planet. So we have two ways to commit suicide here, and I say no thank you to them both. I would rather go down fighting than to allow myself to commit suicide by voting for either political party which has been driving us over the cliff.
When Donald Trump says, as he did in July, I think a vote for Stein would be good because I figure anyone voting for Stein is going to be for Hillary. So I think a vote for Stein is fine. Does that make you uncomfortable at all that he's so keen on your candidacy for obviously selfish reasons?
Well, Donald Trump is, he may be a good publicist, but he is not he doesn't have the last word on political or strategic analysis. Would you say the same thing? Would you tell Gary Johnson to also get out of the race because he happens to be drawing more votes from Hillary Clinton?
Yes, many people would say that in order to stop Trump,
in other words,
candidates should get out of the way.
What you are saying is that we should only have two official political parties in this country, and let's just be like
I'm saying that is the reality. The next president will be Trump or
and
Clinton,
suppress political
and you seem to be fine with both.
I don't think that is how we're going to get out of this.
Okay, just turning to foreign policy, you have an admirable record of opposing militarism, illegal wars, standing up for the Palestinians under occupation. You've been praised for that by many on the left. But on Russia, your critics think you're too soft on Vladimir Putin. Late last year, for example, you went to a Russian government-sponsored conference in Moscow where you filmed a video outside the Kremlin in which you explicitly called for the, quote, reining in of US exceptionalism and denounced a US policy of domination, which many people would agree with you on. But you didn't say anything in that video about the illegal Russian annexation of Crimea or alleged Russian war crimes in Syria. Why is that? Is it because you don't think Russia's done anything wrong in Syria or Ukraine?
Well, that video was about approximately a 20-second clip, so there wasn't much. That was an informal hello to our supporters from Russia. Well, it was still an informal hello to our supporters. That was not a message. I gave Vladimir Putin a message at that conference, and that message was that he needed to stop bombing Syria in the same way that I gave that message to President Obama. But Vladimir Putin was actually listening. So I went there to criticize Vladimir Putin for his extremely ineffective war policy, which I would put together with that of the U.S. In fact, the U.S. is collaborating with Russia now in this bombing campaign.
Indeed it is.
You know, it's great that they're collaborating, but they should be collaborating on a weapons embargo and on an embargo against the funding of terrorist enterprises.
You say you
so
went,
yes, I'm all
you
for
say you went to
collaboration, but I am
criticize him.
not for war.
Okay, no one is saying you're for
Yes.
war. You're saying you went to criticize him, but a lot of people saw a picture of you sitting around a table with Putin himself at a dinner hosted by the state-owned TV channel where you didn't say anything about human rights or democracy, and two prominent Russian environmentalists wrote you an
as a
open
matter of fact,
they wrote you an open letter
I
on Facebook saying, by silencing Putin's crimes, you are silencing our struggle. By shaking his hand and failing to criticize his regime, you are becoming his accomplice.
Well, in fact, we have criticized his regime. We have criticized his oppression of environmental justice and gay rights groups and so on. You know, sitting around that table, there was no translator, so there was not an
Well, he
opportunity
speaks English.
to actually
He
talk.
understands English.
But
you could have said something to him. Wouldn't you have said
well,
something
he
to
was not
Obama?
speaking
Wouldn't you have said
English
something to
at that
Obama at a
conference.
table? Would you have
And
shared
in
a
fact,
table with
there
Obama
was no
silently?
opportunity. Well, put it this way, I would not have an opportunity to even sit at the table with Obama. I went there to a conference to send a message to Russia that they needed to get with the program and abandon the politics of weapons and bombing as an answer to this terrorism crisis, which is affecting them every bit as much as the U.S.
And one last question. You ran for president for the Greens in 2012. You got less than 1% of the vote. You're running again this year. You're on course for 3, 4, 5% of the vote. Do you think you'll do this all again in 2020? Run again a third time for the Greens for president?
Put it this way, I have no illusions that the Democratic or Republican parties are going to fix this. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We, the public interest, we who are not controlled by the corporate money, the lobbyists, and by the super PACs. It falls to us to build a political movement. There is a social movement right now around the world that is fighting against climate change, that is fighting for human rights and for workers' rights. We are not represented by the major political parties in the countries around the world. So in the United States, we are building an independent political force, and we're doing it from the ground up. Fortunately, the American people now are realizing this and have divorced the Democratic and Republican parties. The major block of voters now is outside of those parties. They can only survive as long as they suppress our voices. But we are not going away. We are getting louder and we are getting stronger.
Jill Stein, thanks for joining me on UpFront.
Great to be with you.